Support for WUWM podcasts comes from Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee, home to 24/7 excitement, dining, and an on-site hotel at 1721 West Canal Street. More information at potawatomi.com.
From 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Today, we'll learn about Madison's Office of Independent Police Monitor and their role after a fatal police shooting last week.
I am the only independent office in the state of Wisconsin. So beyond the city, I'm the only entity that the community and the public actually trust.
Then we'll tell you about a program that helps get early education teachers into affordable housing in Milwaukee.
We gotta take care of the people that take care of our kids. And so if we do that, we are one step closer to achieving that higher quality of life for our entire community.
Plus, we'll share some new local music in the Milwaukee Music Roundup. All that's coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Thanks for joining us. Last week, a Madison police officer shot and killed Corey Ruiz after police say he injured the officer with a knife. Ruiz's death happened in the same area that 19-year-old Tony Robinson was fatally shot by an officer in 2015. Robinson's death was a catalyst for the creation of the Office of Independent Police Monitor. That office is responsible for investigating and monitoring the Madison Police Department, ensuring accountability and responsiveness to the concerns of the Madison community. Arameek Glass has been the independent police monitor for the city of Madison since the end of last year. She says the office is investigating the fatal shooting, despite not yet having all the information and evidence from police. Glass joins WUWM's race and ethnicity reporter Taryn Powell to talk about the role and her outlook on Ruiz's death.
The Office of the Independent Police Monitor has the ability to audit, issue independent investigations and reports and findings, look at policies, practices, and patterns, look at the data, look at all of the different things that the police department is doing to put recommendations forward. In these independent investigations, those are the higher level. There's different classifications. And so independent investigations, how those are triggered is if there is an officer involved shooting, an officer involved or in custody death, if there is great bodily harm, if there is an incident that has to do with, sexual harassment, abuse, and something that I would deem, pretty egregious. If somebody was tased, if there's a dog bite, those types of things. And then those are fully independently investigated outside of MPD's internal affairs and outside of any other investigations that MPD or anyone else does. So we have subpoena power. We have the ability to, and we should have unfettered access to all of MPD's databases, which we currently don't have. Prior to some recent cases being closed, myself and the chief had a good working relationship, and I normally receive the information I need. As of December 8th, when I started, because of some political and misinformation, there was a lot that had to be ironed out, and I had to come in and just fix and make sure that they were sharing information with us again and everything begin to run smoother. But in more recent times, because of the releasing of some of my independent investigations, the relationship has changed because political folks have had to take positions, and chief has had to, hold the unfortunate blue line, protecting what he believes his officers are able to do.
So how does reviewing information from an incident go?
The reviewing piece of this is that If they are a complaint that does not warrant an independent investigation and they don't fall within that classification, we can receive a complaint, MPD will receive a complaint, some other entities will receive that complaint and route it to internal affairs. And so once we route it to internal affairs does an investigation. I receive and monitor them while, do you have this information? What are you doing with this case? Where are we at? Give those updates. And then once their investigation is complete and their findings, I then review it. I review and I either make recommendations for additional disciplinary action. I make recommendations around policy change. Sometimes folks' complaints are less about wanting, discipline to happen and wanting policy or practices to change. I also have the ability to say, okay, after I looked at internal affairs, I don't agree with the direction you guys went, or you completely omitted a significant amount of information. So let me figure out what you all are trying to do, and hide and open up an independent investigation, right? If I see that there are some discrepancies or some issues or there's new information that would warrant an independent investigation. So my job is pretty comprehensive from everything. We have a piece of our process that complainants, because really our job is to make sure that the public has some type of ability to see change or to be heard, and to also have a perspective on what police have to navigate through as well, or why they did what they did, or how it works. And so we also offer either restorative justice or mediation, depending on the type of case and the avenue the complainant would like to go. If they want to, be heard and put together an action plan, we would go the restorative justice route. If there is a situation where there needs to be mediation and to come to a common ground because there was an issue on both ends, that can be done as well. So we offer a pretty comprehensive services in our office.
So in the case now with the shooting of Corey Ruiz, we are in the information gathering chunk right now, right? I'm curious to know how you see this going, particularly because you mentioned like the relationship you had in chatting with the chief, and then that kind of changed because politics got involved, and this is getting national coverage now. So I just wonder how you see this going.
How it's going currently is that I requested a significant amount of information from the chief. I was briefed about an hour after Mr. Corey was killed, and I had arrived on the scene about 45 minutes after he was killed. I did my initial assessment of the scene. I could not get to the scene because MPD has authority of the scene. I'm supposed to have access, but chief never arrived on the scene, and I didn't want it to become a battle. So I assessed what I could. I also went to surrounding business owners and took statements. I issued evidence that I found out about, and I had my staff go get that evidence. So there's a lot happening that we did collect, but there's a lot more that I need from MPD, and I will be issuing our first subpoena. And so unfortunately, Chief is saying that he's following state law. He's telling the public that he's cooperating. I don't believe it's him. He's always provided me with him and the assistant chief over internal affairs have always provided me with the information in a timely manner when I have requested it. But I know that there have been delays when they have gotten their legal team involved, which their legal team is the city attorney's office, which on paper is our legal team. When I came into office, I put them on notice that we would not be using the same legal team that MPD uses. So I just want folks to know we do not use the city attorney's office outside of the board for like open meetings, things like that nature. I was told that they are following state law and that's why they could not provide me with information. Before that, I was told that they did not have anything to provide to me because DCI is doing this full investigation. I think one of the important things, if I say, nothing else, is that DCI does not render recommendations. They do not render determinations. They do not make any commentary, opinions, expertise. All they do is collect the information. They facilitate officer interviews. They document all of the evidence. They document everything of the scene. They do an investigation that renders no type of findings. It is state law that when there is an officer involved or critical incident, that there has to be an independent investigation. At the request of MPD, the chief will request an investigation from DCI. After all of those findings are collected and DCI creates a report, they give that report to the district attorney. The district attorney is also present most of the time during officer interviews. The district attorney also can be present during other parts of the investigation, as well as the police union is a part of the officer interviews because they can have their police reps. I'm telling you all of this because I want everybody to know how the ecosystem works. And when the district attorney, just like in the Richard Johnson case, decided to not press charges, but there was multiple significant pieces completely omitted from the DCI internal affairs at every level that it was investigated or reviewed. I think that it is safe to say when people are not understanding, the city is not understanding why people are so adamant about this office and myself getting what we need to be able to do the independent investigation, which we have the authority under the city municipal ordinance to do. I am the only independent office in the state of Wisconsin. So beyond the city, I'm the only entity that the community and the public actually trust to get all of the information and to be able to analyze it in a way that is fair, but also provides all perspectives and what actually happened. So I need the information. I need to be able to do my job.
So, what sort of reflections have you had since this recent shooting?
The last couple of days, I've just had to really talk about how I warned the chief that we were one incident away from this happening. For the last almost 8 months, I have met with him. He and I meet every month, and he has been very receptive of my recommendations. But I think when you have the police unions, you have the city attorneys, you have the police morale and the policing culture, and how policing culture is inherently, right? Like the Blue Brotherhood is so strong where, and I say this, I have officers who file complaints in my office. So when people try to make it like, oh, it's them against the police, it's like, no, I have a duty to even officers who file complaints with me about what their peers are doing or what their leadership is doing to investigate and look into or audit, So this is deep, this is heavy, or when they're trying to be made to do something that is against their moral compass, I have a duty to officers as well. So it's very nuanced. And again, I think I said this before, and it's been public of me and Chief's relationship. And it's unfortunate that he broke that trust. And then I'm seeing it also play out now, that they have tried to discredit, dilute, so that the focus is on the state level and the district attorney has these controls. That's where we don't see accountability for law enforcement. That's where we don't see the full picture or the full story. And that's where this particular city has consistently not seen where there has been justice or accountability for when there's officer involved murders. And we see that with Matt Kinney, who killed Tony Robinson. He is still on the police force to this day, right? And so there's a lot of pain in the city. And this all happened in the same block that Corey was just recently killed.
Aramik Glass is the independent police monitor for the city of Madison. She spoke with WUWM's race and ethnicity reporter, Taryn Powell. In about 20 minutes, we'll share some new local music in this month's Milwaukee Music Roundup. But first, we'll tell you about the Early Childhood Educators program and how it's building affordable homes to help retain teachers in Milwaukee and improve their quality of life. That's coming up on Lake Effect on WUWM. You're listening to Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. A local program is working to make housing more attainable and affordable for early educators. For teachers or child care providers, the average salary ranges from $35,000 a year up to about $70,000. Now, I don't have to crunch any numbers for anyone to recognize that the current inflated housing market makes owning a home extremely difficult for early educators. That's why the Community Development Alliance created the Early Childhood Education Homes program. They build homes on vacant city lots that cost about $105,000. The goal is to not only improve housing security, but also improve retention and recruitment of Milwaukee teachers and early educators. To learn more about the program, I'm joined now by Teague Whaley-Smith, the Chief Alliance Executive of the Community Development Alliance. He starts by sharing the obstacles teachers can face to owning a home.
I think everybody sees the dramatic effect that housing costs have had across the country, and particularly in great communities here like Milwaukee. And when that happens, when you have a shortage of housing and you have increased demand, the price goes up, and prices have skyrocketed, particularly in the area of rent. We've seen rent, almost go up, 30, 40%, sometimes year by year. So that has a big impact on lower wage earners. And we know that there are so many passionate teachers and early childhood educators that love their careers and want to be working with kids their entire lives. And then all of a sudden their budget changes because they're spending 2 or 3 times more on housing, and they have to make really painful decisions. Do they want to continue in the career that they love and that they've chose, or do they want to be able to house their family? And nobody should have to make that choice.
Right. And the Wisconsin Policy Forum reported that there was almost 10% of teachers that dropped out of the profession entirely. And financial stability is one of the reasons among the many other stressors that teachers face. So when we're talking about how do we weigh rent, mortgage, and the salary of these professionals, what is the average salary of a teacher in Milwaukee compared to the cost of affording a mortgage?
So there's a wide variety of that term teacher. I grew up in a in-home early childhood education facility. My father was what many would call a daycare provider. And salaries for people that are doing this independently in their own homes, or those people that are working and in that classroom with 0 to 3-month-olds, wages can be as low as $14, $15 an hour for some of those folks. You multiply that by 2,000 hours a year, and you get to, a salary that's around $30,000. Of course, it can go up from there depending on your experience and what school system you're in, et cetera. But the general principle is that we don't want families spending more than a third of their income on housing, because if they do, they can't afford other quality of life amenities or necessities, including food and clothing and all of those other type of things that people need to spend money on. So if you're at $30,000 a year, what you can afford is about a $100,000 home. And there are very few $100,000 homes on the market in Milwaukee.
In livable shape.
That's right. The ones
Yes.
that you find actually require $100,000 or $200,000 of repair. So our goal was to really get to that price point, and we were able to hit a price point of about $105,000 for each of these homes, so that you have people that are moving from paying $1,200, $1,300 a month in rent into a home of about $900 a month for mortgage and interest.
Yeah, let's get into this program you're talking about and how you kind of came to third of the income category for helping you guys price out this program. So it is the Early Childhood Education Homes program, and it's aiming to help tackle the problem of housing security for educators of all levels. Before we get into some of the specifics, can you share how it first started, and was it modeled after an existing program, either other places in the U.S. or something you wanted to try here in Milwaukee?
So post-COVID, there were several working teams working on different elements of quality of life in Milwaukee, whether it's food security or otherwise. And there's a group working on early child education that noticed that teachers weren't coming back into the classroom after COVID. And if early childhood education teachers were not able to get to the classroom, then that means that we as parents could not get into work because we don't have a place to send our kids. So this is a problem bigger than just the teachers. It's a societal problem that requires societal answers. Initially, the group that was working on this included Nextdoor Foundation, COA, Malika, UCC, Rooted and Rising, and they wanted to work on secure housing. And initially, they only thought rental was possible. And we said, we actually think that if we're serious about long-term stability, we need to focus on home ownership. Rents in Wisconsin, if they just increased by inflation, since the 1950s and 60s, we'd only have about $800 a month in rent. Of course, rents are now averaging $1,200, $1,300 a month. Your mortgage payment stays the same. And so we wanted a home ownership solution. So we partnered with those groups. We partnered with LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation. We were able to receive a $5 million grant from the Evers administration for innovation and Department of Workforce Development. Housing is a workforce problem, and it is a workforce solution. So that's how this idea first came about.
Now, when it comes to finding properties, is it a mix of finding ones that can be rehabbed? Are you building from scratch? How are you acquiring the houses that will be used for this program?
So anytime you want to scale something up, you need to have systems. And the problem with rehab is that every rehab is different. Sometimes you need to replace the flooring. Sometimes it's the ceiling. Sometimes it's the roof. Sometimes it's the basement. And we need to preserve as many homes as possible. But it's hard to bring that to scale. However, if you're building new construction housing, you can bring that to scale by building several of the same model of housing that brings costs down for everybody. And we have an incredible opportunity here in Milwaukee that we have 3,000 vacant lots, all of which at one point had a homeowner in a neighborhood. And in the 1960s, those homes got transferred over to one landlord, and then there was a second generation and a fourth generation, and now we're like on a seventh generation landlord, each one of them depleting the property of rent and not making an investment, to the point where those eighth, ninth generation landlords, their entire strategy is to buy it with cash, not provide insurance, not pay the taxes, wait for it to be tax foreclosed, and then it's inhabitable and needs to be demolished by the city. And we can repopulate these neighborhoods and bring people back to the neighborhoods that they may have grown up in by building new construction housing on those vacant lots.
So when it comes to all that coordination it takes to acquire the lots and then also, more importantly, build, what kind of partnerships do you have with the city or other businesses or organizations to make these houses?
Housing is at the core of all of our quality of life. Data shows that it impacts education, safety in neighborhoods, employment rates, and overall health. The way you get to that goal of healthy housing is through collective impact. So at the Community Development Alliance, we bring partners together. We don't swing the hammers. We don't provide the direct assistance, but we're sort of quarterback or coach in this example, bringing in all of the teammates necessary to get the projects across the finish line. So that involves funders and philanthropy, and we've had great philanthropy on these efforts, including not only LISC itself and Department of Workforce Development, Wells Fargo, Northwestern Mutual, Zilber Family Foundation, Greater Milwaukee Foundation. All these partners come together to fund the project. But then you need neighborhood organizations to give direction on what type of housing they want in the neighborhoods. And so we have a resident advisory council, and we set up a project team with neighbors that we're building in so that they have input on what homes look like, the deed restrictions that are put on them. They help draft those things. And then you bring in the builders. And so we're very fortunate to have Habitat for Humanity has partnered with Envision Growth and Obi and Mabuzer to build homes. VIA CDC is building homes. MCC is building homes. And it's just been an incredible partnership of so many partners to come together. And then, of course, educators need to know about the homes. So we've had partnerships with brokers like Don and Colbert that were featured in a recent article, and the early childhood centers themselves to be able to come to the holiday parties to talk about it, to come to the teacher retreats to talk about it. So it really does take a village to build a house.
Absolutely. You mentioned these houses are sold for about $105,000. What's the average cost to get these homes up and ready to sell?
Yeah, so when my grandfather first built his home in the 1950s, it cost about $12,000 to build a single-family home, and the average annual salary was about $6,000. So in our country's history, we've figured out how to build a home for 2 years of the average salary for a lot of Americans, but unfortunately Americans that look like me, white Americans, white families, and built intergenerational wealth. If we had just seen inflation in those costs, similar to we talked about rents, a new home would only cost $100,000 to build, and you wouldn't have this gap. But that's not what has happened in the construction industry. The construction industry has lost the ability to build entry-level homes. They're focused on these very large McMansions, and it doesn't make business sense for somebody to build an entry-level home from beginning to end without massive federal intervention. And so one of the things that we are piloting here is to really illustrate when you do have government intervention what you can do. And so it can cost anywhere between $250,000 to $300,000 to build these homes. It's a really big gap. But you have to understand that a home lasts for 100, 200 years. So it's really 20 families that you're serving over time rather than one. But what's really important is that, I can't afford my grandfather's home. My kids can't afford my grandfather's home. We had this massive federal subsidy in the 1950s and 60s that went to wealth generation for one generation. And then the kids and the grandkids were left on their own, and we've seen that. And so we have a process called Forever Affordable that allows the first family to build equity in the home, but also ensures that that home is sold as an affordable price for future generations.
I'm just going to take a moment to reintroduce you. I'm Lake Effect's Audrey Nowakowski, speaking with Teague Whaley-Smith of the Community Development Alliance Early Childhood Education Homes program. So we're talking a bit about the logistics and what it takes to build these homes, to get them ready for an early educator to then move in and be able to establish housing security and their own life. What's kind of the makeup of these houses? Are they pretty similar?
They are similar in that they are entry-level homes, but there's room for expansion. So let me talk a little bit about VIA CDC, a fantastic partner on the south side of Milwaukee that has offered their ability to build homes to every neighborhood. And they have a wonderful process where they go in and talk with the neighbors and the neighborhood organizations to figure out what to build, what can be afforded, et cetera. And one of the things that families said is that they want to be able to expand in the future. They might only need 3 bedrooms now on a first floor, but maybe they want to open up a childhood center, care center, or they want to expand in the future. So what VIA CDC did is they actually elevated the basements so that they can be legally occupied as additional space as family grows. So sort of same cost as a traditional home, and not doubling the cost of the home by building out the basement, because that would make it completely unaffordable.
Or adding an egress, like all these expenses that come up when you're trying to make additions to your home.
Yeah, absolutely. So the things that you can't do later are the egress and the plumbing for a bathroom in the basement. Mm-hmm. So you add that cost to the home now, and then the family can build it out later as they go forward. So VIA has done a wonderful job. First, I think 18 homes were built by them. All of them sold to early child educators. We do bus tours every spring where anybody can come and look at homes, but we've had specific bus tours specifically for educators and residents in neighborhoods to give us instruction. Beautiful homes, high ceilings coming in, but also very efficient homes. The best thing that you can do for energy efficiency and for cost is to build only what you need. So these homes are about 1,000 to 1,200 square feet on the first floor, and then have a full basement underneath for expansion in the future.
Awesome. So we're talking about the homes and the need that they're filling, but for someone who's a teacher or early educator out there, how do they qualify? How do they learn about the program, and what are the steps to then get them approved?
So we've tried to make the process as simple as possible, but also achievable so that people aren't given false hope. And so the way that the process works is that any educator can go to housingplan.org/ECE, and there is an application process there. And the basic requirement is that you go through homebuyer counseling, because we want to make sure people know what they're getting into. And you have to have a pre-approval letter for about $95,000 to $100,000. Most families get down payment assistance, and that gets taken away from the mortgage that you need. And so that's really all that they need to do in addition to being an early childhood educator. So the money that we raised is for third grade teachers and below. So you have to be actively working for an early childhood education that include public schools, charter schools, independent practitioners that have a home child center. So that's what you need to qualify, but then you also need to go through homebuyer counseling and get that pre-approval letter from a lender.
With this program, the Community Development Alliance sold its first early childhood education home in October of 2024. How many teachers has this program helped so far? Where are you at now?
We're about halfway through. So there are about 20 educators that are in homes right now, and we have another 20 that are hitting the market right now. And there are homes available. We actively want as many educators to take advantage of this opportunity as possible.
What kind of feedback have you heard from the teachers you've housed so far?
You know, it's really been incredible to meet the families that have gotten into these homes and what it has done for them. We have people that have moved from major housing insecurity into a stable home ownership opportunity going forward. And it's less about, what they say, and it's more about the smile on their face. I mean, you can tell when somebody is stressed out about anything, but you can particularly tell when somebody's stressed out about housing. I don't have the patience and tenacity to be in a classroom with 20 kids, and the people that do are really, really special individuals, and we need to make their job as easy as possible. And so if we can take out the stress of housing insecurity, that's what we should all be doing.
It's a major, major factor. You mentioned it'll be about 40 houses total. What kind of growth do you hope to achieve beyond that? Are there plans for more?
So our ability to continue this program requires, major financial resources over multiple generations to do this. And so I think we've illustrated and proven the concept, and now we need the federal government, state government, and other larger government to really step in. The city and the county can't do this by themselves. And so housing has always been a public good. We've known it's been a public good. Again, I mentioned my grandfather. He received major assistance through loan guarantees and the infrastructure that was built to build his home. And we need that same kind of investment. If you look at the federal budget, there's about $200 billion each year spent on housing, and less than 1% is spent on home ownership for the average American. And so we really need to live our values. And if we believe in the American dream, we have to have people step up and say, you know what, this project works. This is a good public investment to go forward. Our goal is to be building 100 homes per year throughout the city. Not all of them will be for educators, but we always hope that a portion of them will be available for educators and other really critical workforce in our communities.
Right, because with 3,000 vacant lots, the possibilities are there, but would you say the main limitations would be the funding and how that looks?
Yeah, the main limitation is funding. So the primary limitation getting to funding is, do we as Americans, do we as Wisconsinites, do we consider housing to be a public good? And if we're serious about that, we need to move away from rental and back to home ownership strategies. There will always be a role for rental. If you look at successful communities, there's about 30% of people that rent, and we should focus on that. But in some of the communities that we're building in, it's 100% rental. There are blocks in the city of Milwaukee that were built for homeowners and home ownership that now have been 100% turned over to landlords. And they're just extracting capital from our neighborhoods. And so we need to say, enough is enough. These homes are for homeowners, and that can be done through policy change. And you see that throughout the country of saying that big corporations can't own, single-family homes. And it's also going to take a public investment. But just to be very clear, that public investment cannot be done by local government by itself. It's going to require the state and federal government to step in.
You're talking about the wider impact of homeownership in communities. And as we're talking specifically about housing for educators, How does it benefit not just them, that this is no longer a major stressor, but their students, wider communities? How is this program making waves and benefiting more than the person who's setting foot in the home?
So there's really great data about the link between home ownership and education. If there are families in stable housing, those families and their kids have 30% higher educational outcomes. That's a major number that we should be conscious of for those working in education otherwise. And the reason is that you constantly have kids that are in families who can afford the first month's rent, maybe the security deposit, but then that's it. And so they're there for a month or two, and then they get evicted. And your teachers talk about this 6-month cycle in the classroom that kids can't focus and they can't stay at work. There's data that also shows the same is true for people that work and for the teachers that are in there. If they are having housing insecurity and they're on that 6-month cycle, how can they possibly focus on the kids in the classroom? And so this is kind of similar of getting on an airplane and that oxygen bag falls down and says, take care of yourself before you help others. We got to take care of the people that take care of our kids. And so if we do that, we are one step closer to achieving that higher quality of life for our entire community.
Well, Teague, I want to thank you so much for joining me today to share more about the Early Childhood Education Homes program. It's great work, and I can't wait to see how it grows.
Thank you so much.
Teague Whaley-Smith is the Chief Alliance Executive of the Community Development Alliance. We spoke earlier this year. Lake Effect is available as a podcast, so you can listen when you like. Find it wherever you get your podcasts, then subscribe, download, and listen on demand. Still to come, we'll listen to some new local music in this month's Milwaukee Music Roundup. Keep listening to Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. This is Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Every month, Matt Wild from Milwaukee Record creates a list of some of the best new songs from local musicians. And every month, he shares a few of those songs with Lake Effect's Joy Powers for the Milwaukee Music Roundup. Here's their latest conversation.
So we have a lot of groups that I don't think we've talked much about before. This first one, unfamiliar with them, love the name, Tiny Vamp.
Tiny Vamp, yes, this is a very, very new band. Just came out, a couple months ago, really. And they have a self-titled EP out, 4 or 5 songs, and it is fantastic. They are describe themselves as kind of a emo girl band, as in like Riot Girl, kind of going in that direction. The song we're going to listen to is called Stitch. One of my favorite from the record is also tosses in a little bit of like shoegazy, kind of dreamy vibe to it. It's very, very good. Very young band. Really looking forward to what they have in store. This EP, in fact, was recorded by Dan Didier, who is Milwaukee music fans will know as the drummer of The Promise Ring and the current drummer of groups like the Hallelujah Ward and many more. So Dan recorded this for Tiny Vamp, and it's fantastic. So this is Tiny Vamp with Stitch.
Stitch by Tiny Vamp. This next song, it might be a weird thing to say, but it sounds kind of like an old favorite song. It has a very lived-in feeling somehow.
Absolutely. It does have a lived-in feeling, and it is about an old person as well. So it fits the vibe. This is a song from a great band, a Milwaukee band called Rainbow Cobra. Great name for a band. And the name of the song is King of the Act. Now, Rainbow Cobra, they've been around for a couple of years. They just finally put out a full, long-playing record. It is called Nothing's Free. It's kind of their debut record. And they've got a real kind of 90s, kind of alt-rock, shambly, kind of slacker rock vibe to them. They remind me of another Milwaukee band from a few years ago, Sat Night Duets, kind of this very droll, kind of funny, but very dry kind of sense of humor. The song, like I said, is called King of the Act, and it cuts a little close to someone like me. It's about kind of an aging kind of scenester who's still playing in a band and playing to kind of increasingly smaller crowds, but still going out there trying to be seen at the local bar and just not knowing when the game's up. It's actually a pretty biting, pretty depressing song, but I think it's pretty funny, and it's great. So yes, this is Rainbow Cobra with King of the Act.
King of the Act by Rainbow Cobra. This next song, so I was unfamiliar with this band. This is going to be such a very specific reference. If anyone's familiar with Daniel Johnston, there was a time in which he was institutionalized because he had some mental health issues. During that time, he made at least one album that I've heard in which sometimes he's playing songs and he's just kind of screaming over them. He had this kind of obsession with Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yes.
And that is the closest reference I can find for this next song.
Yes, and that's a very good reference. And the band we're listening to will be The Frogs, a classic Milwaukee band. Have not been a band for some time. The song we're going to be listening to is 30 years old. Just a little bit of background on the Frogs. They were this Milwaukee band, two brothers, Jimmy and Dennis Flemian, who were active in the 80s and 90s. A very kind of gleefully offensive band. Semi-improvised a lot of their songs and would go on stage. One of them would dress up in giant silver bat wings. Another one would dress in blackface. It was that kind of very shocking, very out there thing. They found a lot of success in the 90s, and they had a lot of very, very famous fans. Some of the most famous names of the 90s, people like Eddie Vedder, people like Kurt Cobain, Billy Corgan, Beck, a famous Beck sample, That Was a Good Drum Break from one of Beck's 90s songs, That's the Frogs. So they had a lot of brushes with fame back in the day. And one of their albums, which came out in 1996, is being reissued this September. The name of the album is My Daughter the Broad. And that's actually one of the least offensive Frog album names. And the song we're going to be listening to from that record is called I'm Sad the Goat Just Died Today. And once again, that's one of the few songs from this album that I can say on the radio. It is, like I said, very semi-improvised. It's very silly. It's very strange. It's barely even music. But if you're in the right mindset for a group like the Frogs, it's very, very funny. So this album is getting kind of a deluxe reissue, 30th anniversary this September by a Milwaukee label called Foreign Leisure. So fans of the Frogs, it's going to be a big fall for you, so buckle up. So this is the Frogs with I'm Sad the Goat Just Died Today.
I'm sad because my goat just died today. I'm sad my goat just fell in the hay. Hey, we're all sad. The goat just died today. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're sad enough to cry. Hi, hi, hi. Sad the goat just died tonight. We're sad his funeral will be out of sight. We're so sad, but in a way we're happy he didn't suffer too much. He only got the cramps once. Sad, oh, the piece of poop wouldn't come out of his belly. Sad, we had to call Doc Nelly. We're sad.
I'm Sad the Goat Just Died Today by the Frogs. We're finishing off with, I think, a group that's become a Milwaukee favorite. I'm almost positive we've talked about them before, Gold Steps.
I would be surprised if we have not talked about Gold Steps, because Gold Steps are a very, very busy band, a fantastic Milwaukee group, so busy all the time, a great kind of pop-punk, kind of emo pop-punk sound, very, very slick, very, very glossy. And I've always liked Gold Steps, and I've really come to appreciate them over the years just for their kind of work ethic. As we all know, it's not just enough these days to, make music. You have to be kind of your own publicist if you're in a band or if you're a musician, and you need to, put out content. And Gold Steps is a band that does that. They do a lot of that stuff, and they make it look easy, and they make it look fun. And every time I see them, releasing a new TikTok video or a new YouTube video, I'm just like, wow, they're always so busy, and yet they have time to put out great music. This is a brand new song from them. It's called Make It Make Sense, and they've described it as kind of a political song. It's not very specific in its politics, but it is kind of one of these, like, the state of the world today, like everything is crazy, make it make sense. So this is a nice step in that direction for Gold Steps. Fantastic band. Like I said, very, very busy, always great. This is Gold Steps with Make It Make Sense.
Make It Make Sense by Gold Steps. We are really running through summer here. It feels like summer just started in some ways. It also feels like, especially from this viewpoint, that summer still has months and months to go. I know that's not quite right, but what are you looking forward to in this next month?
It's a very confusing time. I agree. I mean, at this point, I'm already like counting down to Halloween. I don't know what we got, like 90 some days left. No, I am looking forward to the rest of the summer. There's tons of summer left. A lot of the big things have come and gone. Summerfest is gone. A lot of the block parties are gone, but there are still many left. Bayview Bash is coming up in September. We have things like that. Plenty to go. The State Fair. And I don't know. I'm just looking forward to soaking it all in. I always enjoy kind of the dog days of summer going into August and things like that. It's kind of my favorite time of year. And like I said, right after that, hey, Halloween. So I'm looking forward just to the rest of the summer.
Very nice. Well, Matt Wild, as always, thank you for joining us here on Lake Effect.
Thank you.
Matt Wild is the co-founder of Milwaukee Record. Every month, he joins Lake Effect's Joy Powers to talk about some of the best new music from local bands. At WUWM.com, you can find all of their previous conversations. And that wraps up Lake Effect for today. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. If you've missed any of Lake Effect this week, you can find all of our conversations at WUWM.com. If you'd like to take the show on the go, you can download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow on the show, we'll help you prepare for the upcoming primary election. We'll tell you about a resource from WUWM that you can use at the polls. Plus, we'll share what you need to know about election security in Wisconsin. Thank you so much for joining us today, right here on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.